It is here now. Through week 3 of the college football season, we have our top 10 teams across the college football landscape. We appreciate the AP poll. We don't go by the AP poll. We appreciate the coaches poll. We don't go by the coaches poll. I love technology. This show is brought to you through technology. The fact that you're able to watch this on your computer through a machine, we love that, but we don't trust that with our college football, right? What we trust is what we see with our eyes watching college football every single Saturday. And I'm telling you this, machines, I don't believe, watch every single college football game. Coaches, I don't believe, watch every single college football game outside of their opponents. I don't even think the AP watches college football the way that you and I watch college football. So with that being said, we're going to tell you who we believe are the top 10 teams in the country in this week's Nothing But Ball poll. Get at me on Twitter, get at me on Instagram, and let me know what you agree with, what you disagree with. Would love to hear from y'all. I'm sure we'll all agree, though, 100% when it comes to this list. Speaking there facetiously, of course. At JD Piquel on Instagram and on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it. All right, let's get into it. At number 10, the Washington Huskies. And I have been extremely impressed with Michael Penix Jr. There is no question about it. He is in that top 3 conversation for the Heisman Trophy. It's only week 4, so take that with a grain of salt. He's been dealing. They have some of the best weapons in the country catching the football for him, and they have been dominant to this point. Now, October 14th is a day that you have circled if you're a college football fan for a variety of matchups, but they welcome Oregon to town that day, and that's the game that I'm really curious to see because Oregon, in my mind, is just a step ahead of where Washington is right now, and the Washington Husky faithful have let us know about that on Twitter. So, to kind of transition here to our number 9 team, I got Oregon at number 9. And the biggest, I think, complaint I've gotten when it comes to our top 10 has been, well, you got Oregon ahead of Washington. JD, are you seeing Michael Penix Jr. dealing the pill around like a shady pharmacist? Are you seeing Rome Odunze just absolutely doing whatever he wants to defensive backs on the field? Yes, I'm seeing all that. I saw it. I appreciate it. I commend it. But with that being said, in the small sample size we have right now, I am more impressed with Oregon's win at Texas Tech. Washington, they throttled Michigan State. No way around it. But Michigan State's kind of got their own issues they're dealing with. I think Oregon, the way that they're built and what they have under the hood that we've seen so far, Bo Nix playing quarterback, gritty approach that is from the top down with Dan Lanning calling the shots. They play complementary football. Defense looks improved. Secondary still has some questions, but they look improved. For me, I got Oregon as our number 9 team in the country on the Nothing But Ball poll. At number 8 now, this is not your Rudy's Fighting Irish. Notre Dame for us at number 8. Everything to this point for Marcus Freeman, what he did in the offseason, going and acquiring Sam Hartman, and the way they have tinkered and had to adjust this staff, it has worked. It's only week 4, but it's worked to this point. This is his second year. This is Sam Hartman's first year. To this point, all good. Now, in this game against Ohio State this coming weekend, you get to see where you really stack up. And to be honest with you, this is the game that you run your entire process through. This is the filter for you. And this is the game that Sam Hartman came to Notre Dame for. For games like this, where Ohio State comes to town and you may need to score 40. That might have to be a world that you live in if you're Notre Dame. You feel much better about that now with the balance you have offensively and who you have playing quarterback for you, and the way your receiving core has looked to this point in the year gives you some encouragement. So for us, Notre Dame at 8 this week, if they beat Ohio State, we're going to have a very serious conversation with Notre Dame potentially being a top 5, top 4 team in the country. So take that as you will, but number 8 this week in the Nothing But Ball poll. Penn State, number 7 for us this week. They're pretty steady at number 7. They throttled Illinois. They play a dinged-up Iowa this coming week, whiteout conditions. Drew Aller has not looked like a first-year starting quarterback. Really impressed with him. But a part of this team that is not getting nearly enough buzz is the defense, man. I believe they forced 4 interceptions against Luke Altmaier last week with Illinois. This is a team now that you love what they have offensively because of Drew Aller, because of the backfield, Keandre Lambert-Smith making his presence felt and stepping up as that alpha dog wide receiver. But I'm telling you, man, the defense is why you feel so good about Penn State when it comes to those games against Ohio State, against Michigan, because of how they match up. The talent level on that side of the football, the experience level on that side of the football, and the depth, This is a different ball club now than we've seen from previous Penn State teams. So Penn State for us, number 7 right now. But when they get into the back half of this schedule, do not be surprised if they start shooting up the rankings and making some very legitimate noise. At number 6, we got Ohio State. We already talked about that game against Notre Dame. It's going to be huge. To be honest, it was just nice to see them look the part last week against Western Kentucky. Hung 63 on them. Kyle McCord looked like the guy in 2 facets. One, on the field, he was dealing, right? Had that fumble, bounced back, throws 3 touchdowns, no problem. Keep this good thing rolling, and let's get on to this game and go to South Bend, Indiana. That's great. I love that. Love seeing the offensive production. The other side of things, though, how cool was it to see Devin Brown step in there, sling the pill around, throw a touchdown, and one of the first dudes to dap him up and congratulate him, Kyle McCord. The confidence you have to have and the security you have to go and just be a good teammate, quite honestly, to the guy that you were competing with for the better part of the last few months, like, that to me said a lot about Kyle McCord. There was no cold shoulder. There was no emotionless just high five. It was legitimately like, hey, I'm happy that you threw that touchdown pass. I'm happy for you to have success. So he feels secure as the guy. It was cool to see him be a leader in that sense. Maybe we're reading too much into it, but even so, I was encouraged to see that. Ohio State at number 6 for us this week. Texas at number 5, beat Wyoming. A little bit of that Bama hangover potentially. Played with their food for the better part of 3 quarters, then found a way to turn it on in the 4th quarter. It is what it is. You go to Baylor this coming week. And the thing with Texas now, and we all know this, they can win every single game on their schedule. They can. Bama was the enormous hurdle. Bama was the big litmus test. You can beat Bama in Tuscaloosa. You feel pretty good about every other game that you have in front of you. Now, it's very fitting that their big win, their arrival moment, more or less, came in week 2 because they got the rest of the schedule now where they have to walk this tightrope and take every opponent seriously and play like they are playing Alabama every single week. Now, that's not to say they don't have good opponents on the schedule. Still, they play Oklahoma. That'll be big. In Red River, BYU, you got K-State, Texas Tech. Still some opponents that could give you issues. But what we're going to see now, it's not a question of the roster. The roster is no longer the concern in Austin, Texas. The question is the culture. And the culture now, when I say there's a question there, it's not, oh man, is the culture good enough to win? Culture's good enough to win now. Culture is substantially improved. You don't go into Bryant-Denny Stadium and slay the dragon if the culture isn't at a point to where you can win football games. The question now is, how much is it improved? Is it championship level culture? Championship level culture takes every game seriously, focuses internally every single game, not worried about who you're playing, treats every game like it's Alabama at night with College game day there. Whether it's K-State, whether it's Texas Tech, whether it's at Iowa State, you treat every single game the same. So like I said, the beautiful part about this, having the big game in week 2, the big win in week 2, is we're going to very much so get a good gauge for where that culture's at for Texas. So for us, number 5 this week, they will climb if they keep winning football games. That's for everybody on this list, but that's definitely true for Texas based on their resume right now. Now, another pushback we get when it comes to our nothing but ball poll at this point in time, USC is number 4 for us. They had a bye week. They won the bye week. I'm imagining they go to Arizona State this week. But a lot of people now, when they see this list, one of the main frustrations is, hey, why do you have USC so high? Who have they played? Understandable. I hear you. A win against San Jose State in a throttling of Stanford doesn't necessarily hang the banner for you as one of the top teams in the country. I hear that. But for me, again, going back to the name of this poll, the Nothing But Ball poll, I happen to believe and really feel this way that Caleb Williams being the best player in the country now, when USC has their best day, that probably goes hand in hand with Caleb Williams having his best day, and USC can beat anybody in the country. The stream did not cut out. That's just truly how we feel about USC right now. I think they can beat anybody in the country when they have their best day. So, for me, it's just hard to put them outside the top 4 right now. We'll learn a lot about them October 14th when they play Notre Dame. We'll also get a good gauge for them here in a couple of weeks when they play Colorado. They're going to play an offense that can score. So the USC defense will kind of have to round into not final form, but in pretty respectable form here sooner rather than later. But USC for us, number 4 this week. At number 3, a team we're going to go see. Florida State, they go to Clemson. Cannot wait to watch that game. This is what it has led up to for Mike Norvell and company. This is why Jordan Travis comes back. This is why Jared Verse comes back. Yes, the draft stock, I'm sure, is a part of it, but for a game like this, to go and take the crown from the team that has the crown in the ACC, and that's Clemson. It's also why you go out and get a Keon Coleman, why you go out and get a Jaheim Bell for games like this, to get your team over the hump. And we talked about it a lot this offseason when it came to Florida State. I happen to believe that for Florida State to take that next step to winning the ACC, to being a college football playoff team, it starts on the offensive side of the ball. And not for them just being a good offense. I'm talking about being a 40 points a game kind of offense. Last year scored 35 a game. I think in this game against Clemson, they have a chance now to really rev that engine, really show what they have offensively. They showed against LSU. I want to see it again on the road in Death Valley at a noon kick against a team that has stood in your way for the better part of the last decade. This is the game for Florida State at number 3 this week on the Nothing But Ball poll. At number 2, got Michigan. Hard to learn much about them versus the competition. The thing with me with Michigan, I wonder if this whole thing with Jim Harbaugh and the NCAA doesn't just piss them off a little bit, man. Doesn't just make them a little bit extra angry. I wonder if this Jim Harbaugh situation gives them the extra chip on their shoulder that they seem to thrive off of, because they took this whole thing personally. And for Michigan to have more ammunition, more fuel to that fire that they seem to thrive off of nobody believes in us, it's us versus the world, like, that would concern me if I'm a Big Ten opponent having to play Michigan. Schematically, we talk about it every week. J.J. McCarthy and him taking another step forward, had some interceptions this past weekend. We're not going to read too deeply into that. You can't have it going forward. But even so, Michigan, with the edge they're playing with, keep an eye on them. I wonder if that isn't the X factor for them going forward, and Jim Harbaugh rejoining them here. So that'll be good for Michigan as they get rolling. Georgia, number 1 in the country, most talented roster in the country, but the internal temperature for them is what makes that whole thing go. Like, there was a clip floating around Twitter this morning, and it's Kirby Smart on the mic just getting after his guys at practice, talking about, is it too hot for us to have leadership? We want to be tired. We don't want to execute. Like, the standard he holds those guys to, I really believe, is second to none. And so the Tuesday for Georgia, a lot of times, is going to be tougher than what they have to do on Saturday. Now, it was good to see them kind of kick it into gear on Saturday in that second half and fall back on their traits. And the depth kind of took over for Georgia to beat a team like South Carolina, who had a good quarterback, by the way, in Spencer Rattler. He was dialed in for the majority of that game. You're going to need Carson Beck to cut it loose a little bit more. Like, get my guy a Red Bull on the sideline, get him some wings, and have him air it out a little bit more to a Brock Bowers or to a Dominique Lovett. Like, let's push the ball downfield more. That's going to happen at some point, but I'll say it again. What Georgia is right now is very different than what they're going to be when it comes to November. Right now, you see Georgia, you say, really? That's the team going for a three-peat? I don't know. They were down at the half to South Carolina in Athens. What's up with that? I would not take that bait. This team's going to trend upward, and by November, nobody will want to play Georgia, is how I feel. But again, going back to that temperature internally, they set it because of what Kirby Smart expects of that team and calls them to. He doesn't care about the hardware from last year. As far as he's concerned, this team hasn't done anything, and that's the reason why they're so dangerous. So, to recap it for you, Washington at 10, Oregon at 9, Notre Dame at number 8, Penn State at number 7. You got Ohio State at 6, Texas at 5, USC at 4, Florida State at 3. Cannot wait to watch them against Clemson. Michigan at 2, and Georgia at number 1 in the Nothing But Ball top 10 through week 3 of the college football season. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.